that we needed to do. That also involved like freeing up freight routes so that people could move more freight, higher weight limits on our roads, make sure that permitting could happen. Really, those initial things in the early days of the pandemic that really nobody knew exactly how that was going to play out. It very quickly became apparent, though, as we started to see the drop in traffic volumes, that this pandemic was going to have a major impact on our primary funding source. And a couple of months in, as we started to really see traffic drops of 30, 40, in some parts of the country, 50%, the light bulb really started to come on to say, this is going to be a problem for what funds what we do. So we started working really diligently to figure out how to prioritize the most important things, knowing that funding was going to become an issue. So at the end of the day, come the end of our fiscal year, we had about a $40 million hole in funding that we had to fill. And really the way that we did that was by suspending purchasing only to those primary things that we needed to get our job done. We actually reduced our workforce hours by about 20%, and used some creative things that were put into the CARES Act through a program called shared work, so that it really didn't financially impact our employees, but also added money to the road fund so that we could continue to do that good work. And then we suspended some of our projects, waiting to see what kind of funding long-term was going to transpire. So those were pretty aggressive actions that maybe you did or didn't see, depending on where you are. The primary things that probably didn't happen were maybe some of those things like appearance things, as we had to cut our mowing back. We lost our incarcerated crews, so we couldn't pick up litter. But most of the projects that were going, we kept going throughout the entire duration of the pandemic and still have. And so one of the good news things is that construction and transportation projects were one of those things that was naturally, I guess you could say, was naturally set up to be able to be done during the COVID environment. It was naturally outside, it was socially distanced. And really this year we produced about $130 to $140 million more of actual payments to contractors to do projects statewide than we did a year ago. And I think that's just a testament to our team and to our contractor teams and to our consultant teams that all figured out how to keep all that stuff flowing throughout a really trying time. So as we sit here today, some of our revenue streams have come back. Traffic volumes are back up, but not back to a year ago levels. So we're seeing about a 10% reduction in traffic volume statewide. And that is really starting to really level out in our revenue side, at least on our gas tax, to about a 10% decline in revenue. But one of the surprising things I think that we've seen is that in the last several months, we get the sales tax on automobiles. And the sales tax on automobiles has actually risen. So the sales tax we get from the sale of cars has actually offset the reduction in fuel tax. Now, I don't know that continues long term. I think we're already starting to see maybe a little bit of a downturn in that revenue. So as we're going forward, we're trying to keep as many projects and as much stuff going as we can, but we are always having our eye on that revenue to see where it's going. And so right now we feel confident enough that we're putting forward our 3-month letting schedule. And we're doing that 3 months at a time as we see another month of data. So right now we're pretty confident that we can let, our January letting. We're going to do our December letting next week, January letting, February letting. I think we're confident that we will be able to let those 3 months of projects. We've also brought back in a few big projects that we put on hold during the deepest trough of the pandemic. So all those projects that we delayed are now back in our letting schedule. We also brought in a big project in Kansas City, the Buck O'Neill major river crossing project. We also green lighted a major design build job there in St. Louis on I-70. And so I think we're confident enough, at least in that time frame, to say that our revenue will support those projects. But I think that's an ongoing discussion that we're going to have every month, and we're really going to watch this revenue to see if it will support the program that we want to do, and that's not a given. Now, in the same time frame, the federal bill that is another one of our primary funding sources ran out in October. The FAST Act expired on September 30th. The good news is that Congress instituted another year of the FAST Act, basically, and said programmatically the things that are in the FAST Act will continue for another year. That is really good news, because that gives us some level of certainty, at least for a year, that we know what we're going to be able to expect on the federal side. Now, there is this little thing of continuing resolution that Congress will have to act on, because they only funded it through December 11th. So we're going to be really carefully watching to see what happens in the lame duck session here coming up in Congress, to see what they're going to do with funding. But assuming that they will continue the funding that supports the FAST Act, I think that gives us about a year to start working on what is next. And you probably have heard some discussion, I think, through some of the news reports, that the Biden team is starting to talk about what does transportation look like in the future. We've had some meetings with people that are on his transition team, and they're talking about definitely reauthorization. They're talking about potentially stimulus and potentially discretionary programs. So we don't really know what that looks like, but we're definitely keeping our ear to the ground and want to make sure we're prepared for whatever direction that goes. I think just if you kind of look at some of the bills that were passed in the Senate and the House, HR 2 in the House, that might give you some indication on what might be in play. But I think, still we've got to fund a long-term transportation bill. And that's going to be critically important for all of us in the arena of planning and getting ready for what's next. The thing that I can tell you is we know what's in our current STIP, our 5-year plan. We're going to do the update of that STIP starting here in the next couple of months on our normal schedule. And I think as we look at these other kinds of programs that potentially could happen, the most primary thing that we will use to populate those will be the unfunded needs list that we developed with our planning partners over the last couple of years. So we need to make sure that that list is up to date, the priorities are right, and that'll be kind of the foundational thing we'll use to feed any program, regardless of what it is. I think the last thing that I do want to say about the pandemic is one of the things that we are really, I guess, concerned about is that you would think with lower traffic volumes that we would see the same kind of reduction in fatalities and serious injuries on our roadway. And that is not the case. We have been really kind of disappointed and surprised by the actual results, but we've seen an 11% increase in fatalities over the last several months. And the number of people that are driving without seatbelts is like 67%. So, while we're worried about a pandemic and the impacts of a pandemic, that news is really bad on top of it. So our efforts on highway safety, we will continue to do those, but we need to get people to have the right behaviors as they're navigating our roadways. So I think that's kind of the big picture view. I'm looking forward to hearing the discussion with what's going on locally there in St. Louis. And we have an excellent team of folks in the St. Louis district that are delivering the goods every day. And I'm so proud of them. And so let me turn it back to them and tell you what's really going on.
All right, thank you very much, Ed. I'm certain that what Ed said there, shared, will generate some questions, and I believe that Ed's going to stay on with us to the end. So please go down to the Q&A feature in the WebEx and enter some questions. At the end of the short presentation, we're going to entertain all those questions and everything. So yeah, next slide. Thank you, Michelle Patterson. That's the slide. All right, so I want to tell you, again, my name is Tom Blair. I'm the district engineer for MoDOT in the St. Louis district. I want to, before I turn it over to my administration team for different details that we want to share with you, I want to remind you from MoDOT terms, what is the MoDOT St. Louis district? The St. Louis district comprises of only 4 counties and the St. Louis city, making us the smallest geographical district that MoDOT has in the state of Missouri. But with over 2 million people, we are home to approximately 1/3 of Missouri's population. With 1,600 centerline miles of Missouri roads located in the St. Louis district, these are some of the largest and most heavily traveled roads in the state of Missouri, as evidenced when you measure those roads by lane miles versus centerline miles. Again, 1,600 centerline miles when measured right down the center multiplies quickly in St. Louis to 6,000 state-owned lane miles. So 6,000 lane miles. So we have a lot of big roads in St. Louis. Bridges are also a very big deal in the St. Louis district, where the nation's 2 largest rivers converge. St. Louis district is responsible for 10% of MoDOT's 10,000 bridges statewide. We are responsible in St. Louis for 28% of MoDOT's major bridges. Those are bridges over 1,000 feet long. And we are responsible for about 25% of MoDOT's bridges when measured by the square foot. So 21.5 million square feet of Missouri bridges are right here in the St. Louis district. St. Louis is also home to nearly 1/2 of MoDOT's, what I think of as specialty assets that are dedicated to mobility. So for example, we have over 1,100 traffic signals on our state transportation system in the St. Louis region, and more than 1/2 of the permanent roadside dynamic message signs and many other mobility assets right here in St. Louis. So again, nearly 1/2 of MoDOT's specialty assets are right here. Now, of course, I don't want to hide the fact that not everything about state transportation system. St. Louis is also home to the Arch, the Cardinals, the Blues, Forest Park, and so many great things that you all know so well. So moving on, I'm really thrilled now to introduce to you our newest St. Louis administration team member. Jeannie Wilson recently replaced Linda Wilson Horn. Linda Wilson Horn has been promoted as now our communication director for MoDOT statewide. Jeannie Wilson is our MoDOT St. Louis District Administration Officer. So Jeannie, the virtual stage is yours.
Thanks, Tom. I'm thrilled to join the administrative. The 5 departments I lead support our internal people, products, and services on our people. St. Louis operates for 713 full-time employees. We use overstaffing specifically in the area of maintenance to offset the higher than average turnover we experience in this group. We currently have 686 full-time employees, and on average, we have about 27 separations per quarter, or around 100 per year. In total, the district has had a turnover of 84 employees since January of 2020, which falls in line with our average of 100 each year. MoDOT is constantly hiring and investing in people in St. Louis. Our workforce is currently comprised of 23% minorities and 18% females. Diversity is vital to our success. We continually strive to create an environment that invites participation, encourages mutual respect, and sensitivity for everyone. Next slide, please.
Sorry, I forgot to say next slide, Jeannie. So this is the slide that Jeannie was just talking about. So I'll let you guys absorb that. So while you guys are reading the slide to complement what Jeannie just said, thank you very much, Jeannie, for hitting on our team and everything. I'm certain again that you shared about our team might generate additional. Please continue to type in the questions Q&A at the bottom of WebEx. Now I'm excited to introduce you to another one of our new team members in the MoDOT St. Louis administration team, Michelle Fernares. Michelle Fernares recently replaced Mark Horkin as MoDOT's assistant district. Mark is now our district in Southeast Missouri. Michelle Fernares is our assistant district in charge of operations here in the St. Louis district. Michelle, the virtual is yours.
Thank you, Tom. Today I'm going to share with you information on the St. Louis operations team. The 2019-2020 winter season for the St. Louis district included response to 12 separate weather events, usage of 27,000 tons of salt, and expenditures of almost $7.7 million. Crews also stay very busy patching potholes, and through October of 2020, we have spent $1.5 million on this activity alone. Keeping the Missouri roadsides mowed and the litter picked up is also quite an effort. MoDOT crews have spent $1.6 million on mowing and an additional $1.7 million on litter pickup. In addition to the MoDOT crews, we also supplement with contracted services for mowing and litter, and that is worth $1.8 million just to help keep up on efforts with the roadsides looking good. Next slide, please. Other less talked about items that impact the operations team are that crews have responded to almost 5,500 calls for priority 1 situations. Those include stop signs knocked down, those really big potholes, or other dangers posing urgent threats to safety. That is 5,500 times that the team was flexible, reprioritized planned work, and responded to the call for safety. The district utilities group also stays very busy, and they've already completed over 19,000 requests for locates in the state maintained right-of-way. These requests are time sensitive and can be emergency, meaning completed within a 24-hour period up to 3 days. This team is currently managing through 60% vacancies with only 2 people. Striping of the interstates and major routes in St. Louis is 100% complete for the year. Recall, Tom also talked about those 1,100 signalized intersections in the district. The striping team has completed almost 84,000 square feet of handwork, refreshing those intersection markings. Sweeping operations also require a lot of time, and the team has spent over 20,000 hours sweeping area roadways. Next slide, please. So Tom also talked about earlier, the district has over 1,100 bridges. 58 of them in St. Louis are classified as major, which exceeds over 1,000 feet in length. 96% of our bridges are fair to good condition. And since asset management goals were set in 2016, the district has improved the previously poor rated bridge rating by 24%. The bridge team is currently 45% understaffed and managing through 12 vacancies. Despite these challenges, the team has completed 1.7 million square feet of bridge deck sealing this year, and that completes their plan for the year. The team has also completed over 12,000 square feet of bridge deck repairs and have recently just managed through 5 bridge strikes by third parties in just the last few months alone. Next slide. The Traffic Management Center helps keep traffic flowing around the region 24/7 and serves as a statewide hub after hours and weekends. There have been 93,000 calls answered, and that has generated over 18,000 reports requiring other team members for MoDOT's actions. The Traffic Management Center team assists with monitoring the work zones through use of those mobility assets that Tom mentioned earlier, including dynamic message boards or monitoring with access to over 631 closed circuit cameras. The emergency response team is also very vital to keeping travelers safe and traffic moving in the region. The emergency response team has handled over 27,000 assists this year, working with law enforcement for crash responses or helping others with such things as changing over 5,000 tires or providing fuel to over 1,400 people who have simply ran out. Next slide, please. In addition to the St. Louis operations team, I also lead this very important group of individuals, the area engineers. The area engineers are the one-stop shop for MoDOT in their respective areas. Angie Turk at the top left leads our St. Charles County team. Moving to the right, top right, is Bethany Williams. She leads our North St. Louis County team. If you look at the bottom left, that is Stephen O'Connor. He leads our Jefferson and Franklin County teams. And just to the right of him is Ryan Piercy. He has our South and West St. Louis County area team. Currently, we are in the process of replacing our City of St. Louis area engineer, but hope to have that announcement very soon. Next slide, and I will hand it back to Tom Blair.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I do expect that generates some additional questions, so keep those questions coming into the Q&A feature on the WebEx. We're getting a few questions, but I know many of the people I see participating, you guys are pretty good at asking questions. We're not trying to hit all the stuff here. We're trying to hit the highlights. So please ask the questions. I look forward to the question and answer opportunity at the end of the presentation. So our final St. Louis administration team member to present today is Tom Evers, and Tom serves as MoDOT's assistant district engineer responsible for program delivery. So Tom Evers, the virtual stage is yours.
Thank you, Tom, and good morning, everyone. So Ed talked a little bit about our statewide transportation improvement plan, which we call the STIP, and I want to just maybe just hit on just real briefly our overall planning process, which goes on all the time, no matter whether we're in a pandemic or not. We're still always trying to be prepared for the future. And beginning right now, this is a good time to really start talking about this cycle, which we're in the September through December, where we're identifying and prioritizing needs. Currently we're looking at scoping new projects, setting priorities, and also working with many of our local partners on improvements that may have local participation or interest. In January through April, that's where we develop our 5-year program. And even though last year we did not get to publish a new step, we're still preparing to do that this upcoming year. In May through July, that will begin our public involvement phase, where we publish our draft step. We also work with our partners at East West Gateway as they also concurrently are drafting their local tip. So we work through that process, and then our plan every year is to publish a new step on July 1st. And then again, July through September, on that last part of the cycle, it says refresh our asset management plans. To be honest, that really happens all year round. We're constantly looking at the condition of our roads and bridges and updating that list in real time as roads begin to deteriorate or as we resurface or repair bridges. Next slide, please. So the St. Louis District is generally responsible for roughly 30% of our program statewide. And as you can see, we have over $500 million actively going on right now, highlighted by major infrastructure work on I-270 in North St. Louis County, which equals almost all the other active projects combined. But in the region, we also have several other major projects, including $35 million I-70 Missouri River Bridge rehab, and also the large river bridge replacement at I-44 over the Merrimack River. You can see photos of those two projects there on the screen. And we also have a few other projects, southbound I-55 auxiliary lane at Route 67 in Jefferson County, and also mainline resurfacing work on I-44 in Franklin County. Overall, we have so many projects, and our district has roughly 80 engineers and inspectors working on these vital infrastructure improvement investments. And then behind the scenes in design, we have 40 internal designers and several consulting firms currently working on about 60 total projects this year alone. In every quarter this year, we have awarded roughly $156 million in projects, and their original program amount was $160 million. That's an amazing result, especially considering that much of the work this year has been teleworking from home. And this is not really uncommon for our team in St. Louis. I'm proud of all the value of work that's provided and produced each and every year. And as you can see from the last bullet point, we have another 80 projects already funded that we will be working on very soon. Next slide, please. So again, as I alluded to a few slides ago on I-270, obviously this is a major project. This will be going on for several years. Right now, it's about 20% complete. The final design of the project is being worked on. There's a lot of details there, but I'm not going to focus today. Oh, and also I do want to point out, just on the photo, it's kind of a neat fact. Maybe it's this image shown at Limburg in 270 depicts the longest pre-stressed girder in the St. Louis region at about 159 feet long. But for the rest of this slide, I really want to talk about workforce diversity. This project really highlights workforce diversity. Overall, there's been over 200,000 hours logged to date. The minority goal for this project is 14% minority and 6.9% female. This project on I-270 in North St. Louis County is tracking at 21% minority and almost 23% female. It's well above the targeted goals for the project. Historically in St. Louis, it's been challenging to get a diverse workforce, especially in some of our trades. And on this project team, led by Millstone Weber, has moved the needle in some of these crafts. Two in particular that we've been most impressed with have been electricians and cement finishers. And these crews are extremely diverse compared to past projects. When you look at how the final workforce data is going to show for this project, how it already is shown and what it will be at the conclusion, it really highlights the impressive work that Millstone Weber and their team is doing. They've set the bar incredibly high and really truly has community support and involvement on this project. Next slide, please. Another project I'd like to highlight this morning is a critical one in St. Louis City on I-64 at 22nd Street in Jefferson. A project like this highlights two elements of our district: great partnerships and major aging infrastructure. The key catalyst of this job was the announcement of the National Geospatial Agency relocation and projected growth and redevelopment on the surrounding corridors. MoDOT partnered with the city to help envision and fund these changes. And taking care of the system improvements include aging bridges rated in poor condition, pavement in need of rehabilitation, as well as filling a need for more direct and intuitive access to and from this area. The highlighted improvements in yellow create a full interchange on I-64 between Jefferson and 21st, which will be the only full access interchange east of Kings Highway. The city of St. Louis has various funding sources that total about $17.5 million to achieve their commitments on improving the local connections shown in blue. This project started this past July and will be completed in spring of 22. Next slide, please. This next project on I-70 between Cave Springs and Fairgrounds also highlights partnerships in the area, this time in St. Charles County. And as you know, this is one of the first interstate corridors built in the country. This 4-mile segment has been upgraded but not reconfigured to keep up with demand. The $62 million project includes $10 million in local contributions from St. Charles and will be delivered using design build delivery method of construction, which the St. Louis district has used frequently with great success over the past decade. This area has congestion at 2 major intersections, discontinuous outer roads, and several issues with safety. And one of the key goals to this project will be to improve the safety and efficiency of the transportation network, all while supporting local connectivity. And while I'd like to show what these improvements will be, that of course will be left up to the best proposal scheduled to be submitted in next May, with the awarded in June, and complete build out will be November of 23. Next slide, please. The St. Louis region is not only responsible for roads and bridges and signals, but we also have responsibility to improve our pedestrian facilities. We have $125 million programmed in this current step that includes $61 million in ADA costs alone. We also have $118 million in corridor projects left to program by 2025. And that includes $36 million in ADA only costs. The last piece of this transition is we also will have a project probably at the very end of all this to catch any spot locations so that we meet our goal of 100% compliance. And so that project will still be scoped and developed. Next slide, please. And so this slide, so we're tracking all these corridors that we need to do. And as I mentioned on the previous slide, all these are just some of the projects that we'll be working on over the next several years. And it looks like a very daunting list to be able to complete that transition plan by 2027. These are routes that have significant upgraded needs. And with all these projects, takes a tremendous effort from all of our staff and program delivery. Also, especially with our right-of-way department, who have about a dozen folks working feverishly on literally hundreds of parcels. In the end, we need to and will be successful on our goal, and MoDOT needs all of you to be supportive of these improvements. These are important investments on our transportation system and dollars that we have to spend on pedestrian improvements that we cannot spend on any other transportation needs. Thank you. And next slide, please.
All right, thank you very much, Tom Evers. I'm certain that generated additional questions. I see a few rolling in, but again, if you have additional questions, go to the Q&A feature in the WebEx in the lower right-hand portion. Type those questions in, we'll get addressed to them quickly. Go back a slide, Michelle Patterson, please. Michelle, yeah, that's it. Thank you. All right, so on this I really want to tie into what Tom just ended in and what Ed had said earlier. MoDOT did in 2019 complete a process to identify unfunded needs and projects statewide. Missourians have repeatedly told MoDOT through different formats that the #1 goal for our agency is to take care of the existing transportation system. However, we also have many needs that still exist that remain unfunded. Both Ed and Tom had referred to the Citizens Guide for Transportation Funding. It's on our website. And the Citizens Guide identifies over $800 million of high priority unfunded needs, but they're sort of in these vague categories. So in 2019, MoDOT staff worked with metropolitan planning organizations such as East West Gateway, Council of Governments, and regional planning commissions throughout the state to develop a list of unfunded road and bridge needs. The funding assumption when we started that was to target $2 billion, put $2 billion in 2 tiers. Now the project list that resulted from that effort in 2019 exceeded the targeted $2 billion amount, totaled close to $3 billion. The first tier had over $600 million in it, and the second tier had over $2 billion in it. So nearly $3 billion of unfunded needs that are high priority by our regional planning organizations, our municipal planning organizations. The entire list can be viewed at modot.org, but the list you have on the screen in front of you are 6 of our top high priority ones scattered throughout the St. Louis region. Many of you that are on the call are near and dear to at least one, if not more, or possibly all of these needs. At this moment in time, we do not have the funding to accomplish these unfunded transportation needs. Next slide, please. Now I want to talk about transportation safety. And transportation safety is a priority and a concern in the St. Louis region. Statewide, year to date, we have had 866 individuals lose their lives on the transportation system statewide as of this past Sunday. 866 too many. Now, when compared to 2019, in that same time frame, we were at 784. So over 100 additional lives lost when compared to 2019 at this time. That is a horrible trend. Now, 255 transportation fatalities have occurred in the St. Louis region. They're not all on the state transportation system, but they are on the transportation system in the state of Missouri. 225 so far this year. Again, that is as of last Sunday's net count. We've seen an 11% increase in the fatalities when compared to 2019. So as Ed said, this is a big problem for our state. Now, nearly a quarter of Missouri's transportation fatalities are in the St. Louis region. Unfortunately, to make it worse, the MoDOT St. Louis team members have experienced 26 motorists that crashed into our protective equipment while trying to complete our work in 2020 so far. We have seen 60% of the statewide crashes into MoDOT protective vehicles here in the St. Louis region. 45% of Missouri's 22 work zone fatalities occurred in St. Louis region. Now, I do want to note that 6 of those 22 work zone fatalities were on the local system. They weren't all on the state's roads. And then finally, we have 37 pedestrian fatalities that have occurred in the St. Louis district. That's 40% of the pedestrian fatalities have occurred in the St. Louis region. Again, not all of those are on a state road. We're working with many of the county and city partners on addressing them also. So I say that transportation safety is a priority, and it's a concern in the St. Louis district that we're all working, and we need your help to improve upon. Next slide, please. I only have really one request for you today. I know you spent a lot of time with us, but one request is do your part to make Missouri roads safer. The challenge is simple. When you get into your vehicle, so I'm asking you personally, when you get into your vehicle, please buckle up with your safety belt. When you get into your vehicle and you're the driver, please commit that you're going to put that cell phone down. Turn it off if you have to. Please do that every trip, every time. This doesn't cost you any money. But this sets a good example. And you guys are all leaders by taking the time today to spend with us and hear the transportation story. So please do that. Now to make that commitment, that buckle up, phone down challenge that I just gave you more formal, and to hold yourself more accountable, we're not going to hold you accountable, but please go to modot.org, as you can see on the slide here. You can go to the buckle up, phone down challenge, and you simply enter in your name and email address. We're not going to hound you or anything, but that makes it a little bit more formal. So we're like signing up for the gym. Makes it a little bit more formal. You got to commit to it, do it. And then one final thing is, as you take that challenge, or if you've already done it, as we enter the holidays, take the time to whatever format, platform that you get to interact with your relatives, your family, please ask them. Please ask your friends. Please ask members of your work community or your neighbors to buckle up their seatbelts and put their phones down. Please ask them to take the buckle up, phone down challenge. Make it formal. Put their name on the list and say, I am committed to doing a better job, even if I'm not perfect, of buckling up and putting my phone down. Please do that. That will do your part in making our transportation system in the state of Missouri safer. Now that completes our formal presentation this morning. Thank you very much for allowing us some time to share the MoDOT St. Louis transportation story with you today. Now, please continue to type in those questions into the Q&A feature on WebEx. I'm going to turn toward Marie Elliott, and Marie is our MoDOT's St. Louis Community Relations Manager, to moderate some questions to our panelists. So Marie, do you have any good questions for us?
Good morning, Tom. We absolutely do. We have some great questions for you guys this morning. I'll go first to just a comment, and Ed, this is for you from Councilman Jim Terry of Jefferson County. He says, not a question, Ed, but I did just want to congratulate you on being the deputy director, since I have not seen you since that happened. So I started with an easy one, and now I'll go to some of the other questions. So here's one, and Tom or Ed, the question is, how do state DLTs and regions position themselves to take advantage of potential robust infrastructure investments as well as potential short-term stimulus?
Ed, do you want to talk about it from a statewide perspective?
Yeah, I think it's kind of what I talked about earlier. You know, the planning process is so important. And the idea that we have a prioritized list allows us to move those through the process. Because the one thing about these programs is you can't just put a project out of the blue and expect it to happen, right? There's a lot of environmental things that have to happen. And if you don't have those things at least started and ready, then you're really just starting from ground zero, and it takes too long, and you're not in a position to effectively compete if they're competitive And if they're just money that comes that's allocated formula-wise, we really rely on the planning process to make sure we have those things stacked up in the right order. So the most important thing I think we can do is really just to get the prioritization right. And then as resources allow, we can start doing the pieces of the puzzle it requires to actually deliver a project. And I think we're pretty well positioned to do that. MoDOT has a track record of delivering. You know, I'd say we're one of the best DOTs in the country. It actually, once money is identified, of actually delivering the project. So I'm not concerned about that at all. If that would come to pass, that'd be a nice problem to have.
So Ed, I'll add to it, and maybe you can jump back in on the fact that part of the question is about positioning ourselves to take advantage of potential robust infrastructure investments, right? And I think we have a track record of that. We're not perfect, but every year we're competing for additional federal grants. And in the last 12 months, let's say, we've had some pretty big ones that may not have directly impacted the St. Louis region, but what are some of those big federal grants that we went after and we received that brought additional money into the state of Missouri?
Well, and I think here's the caution that I would give is any of those things that would be robust, let's say, and if those would come to pass, we have a fundamental problem in Missouri, is we haven't raised our revenue source since 1996. And most of those programs require some kind of state match, and usually the more match you have, the better you compete. That's just been the history. And we're running out of the ability to match projects with state money. And I think that's why in our legislative agenda this year in the state legislature, we're going to propose a 10-cent gas tax that's 2 cents a year for 5 years, and to update our antiquated vehicle registration fees, which are based on horsepower, to update those to miles per gallon that actually kind of offsets the increase in fuel mileage and what that's doing to our gas tax. So those are two things that you can get behind and support that would definitely be very critical for us to be in the right position as we hopefully get some kind of federal action going forward. So pretty important.
All right, Marie, do you want to ask another one?
Yes. This question, I guess, is Tom and Jeannie maybe. What is the plan to improve the 45% understaffing?
And I think the question is referring back to what Michelle Fernera shared on our bridge maintenance team. So our bridge maintenance team is a specially trained part of the MoDOT team. They do plow snow, but their main function is repairing our bridges. We're really proud of that team. We've had a significant turnover in that team lately. Some of them may work for some of you. So what are we doing? We are actively seeking individuals. So if you know anyone out there that wants to be a hardworking MoDOT bridge maintenance employees, please have them apply. If they don't see an application online, have them get a hold of one of us. At the end, I'm going to have a number so you guys can all program in your phone so you can get a hold of MoDOT 24/7 and get a hold of us. But we are actively seeking to fill those positions, and then as we get them filled, we invest a lot in those bridge maintenance employees, more than just the average roadway or roadside maintenance employee. So I don't know, Michelle or Jeannie, if you have anything else you want to add.
Tom, I'd just say that we're in crews and trying to, in order to get work done, because to get new people in the door. But in the interim, we have combined crews and working from that respect to try to get the work done and continue providing results.
All right, Marie.
The next question, Tom, comes from Representative Becky Ruth regarding I-55 and the third lane project that has been moved up somewhat on the timeline. She is concerned about the accidents that continue to occur in that area. I think there was she notes there was a fatality just yesterday at Highway Z. What can be done to get this project moved up even more?
Well, Representative Ruth, thank you for being such an transportation leader in the state of Missouri, in the Missouri legislature. And thank you for asking the question. Thanks for keeping I-55 as a priority. As you noted on our unfunded needs list, I know you know this, Representative Ruth, that is on our list. As Ed just answered the previous question, we really need to see increase in transportation revenue, starting at the state level and then matches at the federal level. Our team's prepared. Many of our team members live and drive I-55 every day. So we are people that live in the St. Louis region also. There's 700 active MoDOT team members, and the majority of us want to see, we'd love to see our ability to deliver improvements to I-55 in Jefferson County. So it really simply takes more money. That would be my answer. I don't know if anybody, the other panelists want to elaborate any more or take a different angle to the answer.
I'll jump in, Tom, just to say that, if it does get funded and prioritized, obviously there's a lot of work to be done in planning for that project. But also, as I alluded to on my I-70 in St. Charles slide, is that using design build is a good way to expedite the process. So if funding is realized, there are mechanisms that we can take to advance the project, because if you go through a design build effort, then or some other alternative program delivery method, you can speed up the process, because you're kind of doing the design and the construction almost concurrently. You still have to go through all the preliminary stuff first and the environmental work first.
Thank you, Tom. Marie, you have additional questions?
I do, and it looks like we are on time for maybe one more question. So Tom E., and I guess you may have to come back on this one. Does the district anticipate utilizing the consultant partners to help complete that big ADA list that you showed earlier? What do you anticipate that these projects will start being advertised? So when do you think, there's some action on those, Tom?
Well, that action it's been going on, it's currently going on, and it will be going on in the future. We have, I think, as I showed, we have roughly 40 internal designers and engineers. It's not enough to be able to deliver our whole system. So we do rely on the consulting community to help supplement our staff, and projects like these corridor projects that have resurfacing and pedestrian improvements and a tremendous amount of right-of-way impact. They're very daunting and takes a lot of effort on the engineering side and resources. So we have gone out many times in the past and will continue to do so.
Thank you, Tom. And Tom Blair, Mayor Terry Epps has a question as well. If one of you would just take time to address this really important 115 project. So I don't know if there were specific questions, but I know the roundabout just went in, so I know there's some movement on that. If one of you or Michelle want to address that real quickly. And then we are probably right at the end.
Okay. And I'll start. Thank you, Mayor Epps, for joining, and thanks for the question. Yeah, we have multiple projects on 115. So the one that Marie is touching on is in the city of St. Louis, making some improvements along that section of the Route 115. But I imagine that you're more focused on the one that's in your community. That project is on the STIP, and I'm thinking it's like 2023 or 2024, if I remember correctly. And I believe that Bethany Williams, Lisa Kuntz, our area engineer and our project manager for North St. Louis County, have been working with you and will continue to work with you. We're really excited about that project. It's another one of those challenging projects, though, because it has a lot of ADA, a lot of right-of-way, details that have to be worked out and costs that have to be worked out. So we're really excited about being able to deliver that project and part of that updating that corridor through ADA improvements. So I don't know if Tom Evers, if you have anything else to add about the 115 project.
I think just as you talked about, Tom, there's a lot of challenges. Utilities are another thing that we have to consider on these projects on our, I'll say, kind of our older infrastructure roads. A natural bridge is definitely one of those. So as we've also learned on some of our other projects, like on St. Charles Rock Road and Olive and Tage, and we've seen a lot of impacts to right of way, but also there's impacts to utility companies, and that it all takes a lot of time and coordination, and working with our locals also is very helpful in determining the right solution to these pedestrian needs.
Yep, it's always very helpful when we have mayors like Mayor Epps that are really excited about getting those improvements happening. So I'm sure we know that you're a phone call away to help us. And with that, Michelle Patterson, can you put up that final slide with the number? I want you to all take out your phones that are still on the call right now. And if you don't have this number programmed in, I'm going to give you the top secret number. It is on our website and stuff. So it's not totally top secret, but I find a lot of you don't have this number. So if you go to the last slide, next slide, Michelle Patterson. And you look at that number, 314-275-1500. Please program that in your phone. That'll get to MoDOT's Transportation Management Center, our customer service reps. They'll answer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Most importantly, if you or any of your family see anything or have questions of MoDOT, see anything that we need to address or have questions, this is a very good way to report that. But also, if you don't have one of our numbers, like I didn't want to put all our names and numbers and phone numbers out on that last slide, you can always call our customer service and say, hey, I want to talk to Tom Blair, Tom Evers, Michelle Ferneris, Marie Elliott, or Jeannie Wilson, or any of these area engineers or others. That 275-1500 number is a great number for you to have stored in your phone. So with that, I want to thank you for your time today. I know we're a couple minutes after 9. I appreciate your interest in MoDOT and our transportation system. I really appreciate the ongoing partnerships with many of you. I see a lot of names on the participant list today that we have great partnerships with, and I see a lot of you that we're building those partnerships with. All of you that are helping MoDOT accomplish our mission of taking care of and operating Missouri's transportation system right here in St. Louis, thank you very much. I sincerely hope that you gained some value from our time this morning and can enjoy the upcoming holidays and stay healthy with your family. And oh yeah, I haven't even mentioned my hair. I am praying for, at least, am praying for a vaccine so that I can go get my hair cut. And I hope that when I look forward to 2021, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving in 2021, I really want to be together in a room with you, providing a MoDOT update in 2021. I hope that we can get back to that. So with that, thank you for your time today. Have a great Thanksgiving weekend, and thanks for supporting MoDOT and our mission.